Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Manojabam Marutatulya Vegam, Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham, Vatatmajam Vanarayotha Mukhyam, Shri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami. Kujantam Rama Rameti, Madhuram Madhuraksharam, Aruhya Kavita Shakham, Vande Valmiki Kokhilam, Apadam Apahartaram, Dataram Sarvasampadam, Lokabhiramam Shri Ramam, Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham. Dakshine Lakshmano Yasya, Vame Cha Janakatmajah, Purato Marutir Yasya, Tam Vande Raghunandanam. We are going to start with chapter 18 of Sundara Kanda. In this chapter, Hanumanji will see Ravana awake, walking, later talking for the first time. Previously, Hanumanji saw Ravana when he was asleep. He has this mighty, mighty, dominating personality. What to speak when he is awake and when he comes to speak to Sita Devi. So the first verse begins this way. Tatha viprekshamanasya vanam pushpidapadapam vichinvatascha vaidehim kimchichesha nishabhavat. Quite literally, the translation is, a little of the night was left while Hanumanji was searching like that for Sita in the garden with flowers and blossom. So let's start at the end of the verse. Kinchit shesha nisha abhavat. That only a little of the night was left. Kinchit, very little. Shesha, remaining. Nisha, night. Abhavat, it became that time when only a little of the night was left. This is like saying that this is very early morning. The sun has not risen yet. In fact, even the glimpse of the sun on the horizon is not there. And the reason Valmiki, it seems, does not say early morning because it's not morning yet. Sun has not come. Or the initial light has also not come to the horizon. And we are all, as followers of Prabhupada, very familiar with this time. That time that is about 48 minutes or an hour and a half before the sunrise is called the Brahmi Muhurta or the Brahma Muhurta time. So this episode that is happening now is the Brahma Muhurta time. So in the Brahma Muhurta, obviously everything that is happening has some significance for us. Now that the time has been given, let's see what Hanumanji is doing. In the verse, he says Tatha, meaning continuing from the previous chapter, therefore, or at that time, Viprekshamanasya and Vichinvatasya. These two words have very significant meaning. Ikshamana means to see. Prekshamana means to observe, to take note of, to examine. And then you add a V in front of it. So V is the prefix called Vishesha Rupena or Vishesha, in a very special way. So in a special way, he was examining, which means Hanumanji was examining Sita Devi and her surroundings in a very, very explicit, detailed manner. And it's not the same as some cursory glance. Oh, he saw Sita. No, every detail he's taking in. And that is applicable to when Ravana also arrives. And then Vichinvata means very deeply thoughtful. So Hanumanji is examining in full detail and being very, very thoughtful. That is the way one should be when it is Brahma Muhurta time. And the person that he's looking at and gathering all this is Sita Devi. So she's not mentioned as Janakatmaja, she's not mentioned as Sita, she's not mentioned as Janaki, but the word that's referred to her is Vaidehi. And I'm pulling this up is in a few verses, we will hear this word Vaidehi again, and we'll draw some contrast at that time. Vaidehi, like literally, is the daughter of the king of Videha. But what does the word Videha mean? Deha is body. Videha means without a body. Or the soul, pure soul that is unembodied. That is the name Janaka got for his spiritual elevation. And not only did Janaka, but all the kings coming from the original Janaka are also called Janaka. And they all have the name Videha, because the one they're ruling the country called Videha, but they're all fully liberated souls. So they have the name Videha. So now combine what's in the verse. Brahma Muhurta, very deeply observant and thoughtful about that entity that is not embodied, the soul. Therefore, Hanuman is showing us that the yogi at Brahma Muhurta time must be in a very deeply contemplative mood, examining the soul. Therefore, we chant, or we are recommended to chant japa in the Brahma Muhurta time to worship. It's the time that is the most suitable for spiritual activity. The moment we say spiritual, it means related to the soul and related to the super soul. So this is the pregnant moment of Brahma Muhurta that Hanumanji has become very deeply contemplative and very thoroughly examining. Thoroughly examining for a practicing yogi would be to consider, what is my actual goal in life? Where am I heading? What is it that I am after? And for all of this, it's important to know who I am. When I say, what am I after? What is the I? Am I the businessman? Am I the father? Am I the mother, the student, professional, warrior, brahmana? Who am I? The I that should consider this is that I am actually a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality. And what I want to get is that relationship with the Supreme Lord and a life full of activity in that relationship. And therefore, it's important to see the soul, or practice to get to the point of seeing the soul. As Hanuman was in that state, he heard from a short distance away Brahmanas who are experts in the 6 Veda Angas beginning to chant from Vedic texts. And this great personality, I'm using the word great sarcastically, Ravana, was woken up from his slumber by sweet sounding music. He had ballads come and sing for him. He had musical instruments, all different types, being played for him so he can wake up from his slumber. This is how kings are awoken. Then, as we saw previously, or through Hanumanji's eyes, we saw that Ravana, his eyes had retreated into their sockets. He was completely intoxicated. on the bed with many, many women, which means he was completely indulging in all sorts of wallowing sensual activity. That personality, when he was woken up and he opened his eyes and he realized that he's awake, Valmiki says, Vibuddhya tu yatha kalam. Vibuddhya means becoming aware. That means he's awake. Vibuddhya tu yatha kalam Rakshasendra Pratapavan. Rakshasa Indra, the king among the Rakshasas, Pratapavan, very, very mighty person. Sarasta Malayambaradharaha Vaidehim Anvachintayat. He had garlands. Sarasta means garlands that had become loose. You know, when the garland is first made, it is offered to the deity or to the spiritual master. All the flowers are very well packed and they're brilliant and fragrant and fresh. Over time, if you hang the garland, because the moisture in the flowers have gone, the flowers become dry and they start to slip, and you'll see the string. Now, Ravana has been wearing this, and the garlands have become loose, is the indicator that previous night he was wearing his garlands and performing very, very intensely, excitedly into amorous sexual activity. And they're all crumpled. Flowers have fallen, disheveled, broken off the garland, and one can see the string. That's called sarasta, malaya ambara, wearing these garlands. And the first thing, he opens his eyes, and who does he think of? Vaidehim anvachintayat. Wow. So here also Valmiki uses the word avachintayat. Previously had used for Hanuman a similar word, and Vaidehim. Now Ravana is not a yogi. In fact, he's quite the opposite of a yogi. He's a bhogi. However, the same words apply, but the meaning is different. Ravana's first thoughts went to Sita Devi. The indication is that his lust has absolutely no bounds. Bring it home. As a conditioned soul, one who's deeply absorbed in the objects of the senses, Vishayan Upasevate, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that when the person wakes up, the first thing they remember is that object or objects that they have the greatest attraction for, raga for, or kama for. For some, it is to know what's on Instagram. For some, it is their fantasy of some other man or woman, or what's happening at work, or what they want to accomplish that day. Whatever is that desire by which they went to bed is the desire that's the first thing they think of when they wake up. Dhyato vishayan pumsam sangha steshu upajayate. That sangha, that attachment, that the first thing, Vibuddhya, as soon as he opens his eyes and he realizes he's awake, he's thinking of Sita Devi. Then Valmiki tells us, Bhrisham niyuktastasyam cha madanena mada utkataha nasatam rakshasah kaman shashakatmani gohitam. Excellent verse for a practicing yogi, or a practicing spiritualist, devotee. He says that Rakshasa was so highly excited by lust, by the god of lust, Madanena, Mada Utkataha, so intensely excited and stimulated by lust, Nasatam Rakshasaha Kamam Shashakatmani. Shashaka Atmani. He was not able to curb on his own his urges within himself. Atmani Shashaka na sa guhitam. Guhitum. He was not able to curb his own lust by himself. What a contrast between Ravana and Hanumanji. In fact, the contrast is even more exaggerated that Ravana had hundreds of women who were falling head over heels for him, except one woman who didn't give him any respect at all, Sita Devi. Hanumanji had no women. He was a brahmachari, but he went and looked very carefully. Some were, remember the discussion we had, some were sleeping, some were singing, some were intoxicated, some had clothes on them, some didn't have clothes on them. Some women's clothes were disheveled. They had gone over their knees and thighs. Their chests were all exposed. Hanuman was looking at each one of them very carefully. And later he says, my mind was not even the least bit disturbed. Ravana's mind is completely taken over by lust. Madanena madokskataha. The difference is Ravana is so smitten, Hanuman is not at all disturbed. So it's not the object itself, but the projection of desire and enjoyment versus service. That makes a difference. Shrotram, we discussed this last weekend. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Shrotram, Chakshuhu, Sparshanam cha, Rasanam, Granam evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Krishna says to Arjuna that a living being has the senses, ears, nose, tongue, skin, eyes, by which they're all grouped by the mind, and that unit starts to enjoy the world. And for different persons, it's grouped differently. Somebody will lust after the body of a woman or a man. Some will lust after food. Some will lust after a certain type of music. Some will lust after a type of touch. Some will lust after their perception of what is attractive. What's attractive to a pig may not be attractive to a human being. What's attractive to a human being may not be attractive to a camel. Because the mind and the senses, that composite unit, is grouped and configured differently. So for Hanumanji, his mind and senses are grouped by the idea of serving Sri Ramachandra. So none of this disturbs him. Same for Sita Devi. She's sitting in Ashokavana. The damsels from Gandharva Loka, Yaksha Loka, Kinnara Loka, they all have flocked to be with Ravana and enjoy Ashoka Gardens. It was specially made for Ravana's harem. Sita Devi there has absolutely no interest. How can something be so beautiful and not be attractive? How can something be so charming, enticing, and not be attractive? Now, it's not that waterfalls and swans and trees and flowers and fruits and birds and butterflies and rivers and mountains and all of that is not attractive. Sita was very much attractive. When she was in Chitrakuta and Panchavati, she absolutely enjoyed all of those because she was with Ramachandra. And with Ramachandra, everything is enjoyable. After all, it's a forest. It was very enjoyable. More enjoyable than the palace if she had to stay alone. But at the same time, now without Ramachandra, none of these things are attracting or beautiful. Same prayer that Radharani spoke, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted, that the same Yamuna is here, The same cows are here. The same Govardhan is here. The dust of Vrindavan is there. All the cowherd girls and everyone's there. But Krishna, without you, it's not the same for me. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that verse or that spirit and told us, Govinda Virahem Name. Without you, everything seems vacant and a void for me. That's the difference between Hanuman and Ravana. And for someone who's in between, like practitioners like ourselves, we go to Rupa Goswami, who told us that these kind of stimulus or stimuli, one should learn to tolerate, Vishaheta. Because these urges are very strong. So they're called Vega. In Sanskrit, Vega means speed or force. So these urges of the tongue, belly, genitals, this urge to speak, anger, all of these, the urges of the mind, we use the word urge, but actually they're forces, Vegan. And one should learn to tolerate them with a sober mind. Sobriety is dhira, he says. So back to Brahma Muhurta, that's the connection. Brahma Muhurta is the time to contemplate with sobriety who we are. What is our purpose? What is it that we want to accomplish? What are my obstacles? And how am I going to overcome those obstacles? Then this Ravana, as if that was not enough, in his stupor, woke up, and with him 100 extremely beautiful looking queens walked with him, and he came to Ashoka garden. He's not even brushed. He's not even showered. The garlands are still hanging in a completely disheveled way. But because he thought of Sita, first thing wants to come talk to Sita Devi. That's how the senses are very, very strong. There's no time lag between when the urge comes and when it is acted out. They say that if you put time gap between when the urge comes and it is acted out, quite likely one may not act on it. Ravana got up and came to this wonderful, wonderful Ashoka forest or garden. Well, already it's morning or that time, so the birds are busy, they're chirping. And as Ravana entered the Ashoka garden through the archways made of gold and studded with gems, there were deer, other animals that were running here and there. It was filled with beautiful trees, flowers, and all of that. And these 100 women who followed him were like the Gandharva ladies who follow Indra. And these women, some of them were carrying lamps. Deepa Kanchanaihi. Kaschit Jagrus Tatra Yoshita. Yoshita is woman. Women were carrying lamps, golden lamps. Some women were carrying fans. And some women were carrying chamara. Now, from a time perspective, this is the Hemanta Ritu. Hemanta is when winter is just ended, spring has not come yet. Hema Anta, when the beginning of when the snow starts to melt. It's cold or cooler. But there are women carrying fans and chamaras. Why? Because Ravana's body is still sweating. Sweating because lust increases within one's body, one's temperature to such a degree that Ravana is sweating. So even within Hemanta season, he is sweating, and so he needs to be fanned or cooled down. Some women were carrying vessels made of gold. Why? In those vessels was very special beverages. Because of his lust, his thirst for gratification is so much that he may need water. Some women were carrying these pillows. I don't know the name for it. Cylindrical pillows when people put behind and you can rest. That's what they were carrying. On the one hand, on the right side of Ravana, one woman was carrying a special vessel studded with gems that was filled with liquor. This is Brahma Muhurta time. This, he has Brahmanas. He comes from a Brahmana family. Mother is a Rakshasi. Father is a Brahmana, whose father is the son of Lord Brahma. They are reciting all these Vedic mantras in his city, in his palace. And he has a woman, his wife, carrying liquor for him. First thing in the morning, Brahma Muhurta time. Another woman was carrying this beautiful, beautiful, big, white, clean, pure umbrella over his head. And Valmiki says it was Rajahamsa Pratikasham. It was white and pure like a Rajahamsa, king of swans. Chatram, Purna Shashi Prabham, and it was bright like a full moon. It also means it was round, like the full moon. Savarna Danda Parara. It was held by a golden handle. Grihitva Prishtato Yayo. Prishtata, behind. She was walking behind him, holding this golden handled white umbrella. But how are the women? Nidra Madaparitakshya. Ravanasyottama Sreya. The best of Ravana had many, many queens. The best of them were these 100. And they were walking with him. What was their condition? Nidram. Adarparitaksho. Their eyes were still sleepy. Because it's early in the morning, the whole night they've had a fantastic time. They were not ready to wake up. But they've come because Ravana has come. Anujagamaha, Anujagmuhu, they're following him. Patim Viram Ghanam Vidyullata Iva. Ghanam Vidyullata Iva, as the flash of lightning follows a cloud. These ladies are very tired. They're sleepy. They're not ready, but they're there. And how are they dressed? They're wearing, obviously, I can't describe how beautiful the jewelry is. So imagine whatever your extent of imagination tells you how beautiful the jewelry is. But those jewelry, the necklaces are displaced. The armlets are not in their place. They've turned, they've slipped. The body and the jewelry has been smeared by sandalwood paste. Their hair is not made, it's all disheveled. Their faces are sweaty. Why? Because still they're under the influence of alcohol. They're still sleepy. The garlands they're wearing are all disheveled. Again, like Ravana's, you can see the string, the flowers are broken. There are some flower petals stuck to one lady's face, some flower petals stuck to someone's forehead, flower petals all over their hair, telling us what all activities happened the previous night. This Ravana, Valmiki says, was completely a surrendered soul. But surrendered to who? To lust. Sacha kama paradhina. Para adhina. Adhina means to be under someone's supervision. Maya adhyakshena, he says, paradhina kamam patis tasam mahabalaha. The irony is, Ravana is referred to as Mahabalaha, but Kama Paradhina. He has great physical strength, but his heart is very weak. He is full of lust. He's become a slave to lust. This is our condition. Each person has so much strength, capability, abilities, but we are slaves. I'm strongly saying we, I am a slave of my senses. Sita asaktamanaha mandaha manda chitagatir bhabhav. Manda anchitagatir bhabhav. Great walk, but walking slowly. Manda. Why manda? Still, the stupor of the night, the stupor of alcohol is very heavily there, but Sita asakta mana. His mind is attached to Sita Devi. Hanuman heard that as Ravana is coming in, he's sitting on a branch of a tree. So from his vision, he saw Ravana, and one by one, he's first hearing the bells that are on the waist girdles the women are wearing. And by the way they are sounding, he knows that they have a very special, attractive gait. Their walking is very well orchestrated. The sound is in very rhythmic. And you could also hear the ankle bells. Now, when someone wears, they're called nupura, and if they're running, you can tell, even without seeing the person, you can tell they're running. If they're walking, at what speed they are walking, how they're walking. So Hanuman could hear all of that. Hanuman saw Ravana and he said, wow, what a personality. Hanumanji had never seen someone like this. Tam cha apratimakraman. Apratимakaran. He had unequaled apratimakarmanam. He has activities that have absolutely no equal, both negatively also, that he has committed such atrocious activities that there is no equal for him. And achintya bala paurusham, achintya bala, his strength is something that's inconceivable. Paurusham, virility, the strength, the vigor that he has. Dvara desham anupraptam dadarsha Hanuman kapihi. He saw Ravana entering through this archway, this entrance. And the place was fully lit with lamps. And what kind of oil? This oil in these lamp holders was all fragrant. Now the question is, why is Valmiki getting into such detail that there were a string of lamps that had oil in them, and this oil was all fragrant, and the whole place was shining with many lamps, or it was lit with many lamps? The answer being, wherever in kavya, in poetry, we hear the words pushpa, deepa, and taila, which is the oil here. He says, gandha taila avisaktaha. Gandha taila, fragrant oil. Then we need to understand that Valmiki is, of course, giving us a picture of how Ashoka Garden was from the storyline. But Ramayana is the Vedas given to us in a more digestible manner. And so in the Vedas, wherever flowers are described, it means the varieties of desires. Yam imam pushpitam vacham. Because the Vedas in general give or facilitate a person's desires, but within the boundary of dharma. So pushpita means full of desires. Ashoka Garden is full of, and that is the place where a person in his life or her life has all these varieties of desires, all facilitated by the senses. The lamp obviously indicates knowledge. Therefore, Krishna says, from their heart, I dissipate darkness by the light lamp of knowledge. Jnana deepena bhasvataha. However, these lamps are in fragrant oil. Fragrance has to do with senses. And oil is sneha. Sneha is the affinity for matter. So although the lamp is lit, that knowledge is not enough. One's own realization is not enough to dissipate the darkness of what the force of sensual enjoyment or exploitation exists within a conditioned soul. Ravana, who was with lust, vanity, and intoxication, his eyes wide open, reddish, but at the same time slanted, he looked like Kamadeva himself. However, Kamadeva or Cupid always carries an arrow and a bow. But in this case, that bow and arrow were not required. Just by his presence, he could charm anybody. That was Ravana. And then Ravana, as he is walking towards Sita Devi, a very beautiful verse here, he says, Matitamrita phena bhamarajo salilam karushatam vimuktam shaktamangade. Literally, Ravana is walking and his upper cloth has slipped to where his armlet is. And so Ravana pulls it up and adjusts it. The reason of that description is, it says, that his upper garment is like white and soft, like the froth on nectar or froth on milk. And that had, so it says, Mathita Amrita Phena. Mathita means if you churn milk, it becomes frothy. That froth is very soft. His cloth, upper cloth was like that. And it had slipped. So Ravana pulled it up. It has slipped to where his armlet was. It's called Angada. Angada means what is worn here, right above the elbow. Now, in this grand poetry, again, why this description? One, obviously, it's a fantastic visual that he wants to come in front of Sita Devi all properly dressed, although he's completely intoxicated. His eyes are still, not yet recovered. They're reddish. Yet he's coming to meet Sita Devi. He wants to look good in front of her. He wants to be attractive. He doesn't want to come like, all disheveled. However, again, because it is Vedic text, the word Angada means that which is an armlet. But another meaning for the word Anga, Anga means limbs or body. Da means that which gives a body. What is it that gives a person their body? It is their karma. And Ravana is trying to adjust his life by thinking that he can modify his behavior and body by his karma. For example, here he's talking about vastra. Vastra is cloth. What does Krishna say about cloth in relation to the soul? Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. He says, just like the soul is wearing cloth. And when it becomes jirna, that means dirty or ragged, he gives up that and puts on new clothes. Tato aparani navani. He puts on new clothes. So Angada means karma that gives the body cloth. And so human beings who are not spiritually educated or not aware adjust circumstances and physical things depending on how karma is playing out for them. And that is like a dog chasing its own tail. How much ever adjustments one can make, karmic reactions cannot stop. And a person is just too busy making adjustments after adjustments after adjustments that they forget that life is moving fast. Rather, the entire karmic stockpile can be burnt by engaging in bhakti. Karmani nirdahati kintu bhakti bhajam. This is from Brahma Samhita. So this Ravana, he's adjusting his cloth, meaning that he's making physical adjustments of the circumstances. Nothing is going to help him. Lust is not going to go away just by making some adjustments. Lust goes away when the heart is in its right place. Evam buddha param buddhe samstabhyatmanam atmanah. This is the last verse of 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. By proper buddhi, which is Krishna, Prabhupada calls this transcendental intelligence, which is by Shastra and by serving great persons, samstabhya, one can completely situate themselves and their mind and can win over this great formidable enemy called lust. I've already reached 45 minutes. We've not covered more than 25 verses, or 24, 25 verses of the chapter. Let me see if there are any questions or comments. I thought I'll finish the chapter and some parts of the next bit. So any comments, questions, thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. I really like the comparison you made between Hanumanji and Ravana. And in the, like we see in the movies, how they show Ravana and he comes to me, Sita, but the description you gave is, it shows how lusty he is and it shows his character and all. But I think it should be portrayed in the movies so people know what kind of person Ravana is. And they all have a different understanding. So, but thank you, Prabhuji. I really like the way you explain, compared.
Okay, you're welcome. Generally, they show Ravana as some ugly fellow, but he is very handsome. Very handsome.
Yeah, thank you. And also the point you told how Sita Devi, how she enjoyed all the green, all the beautiful trees and everything before, and now it means nothing to her.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you for it.
Thank you for the reflection. Anyone else? Anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. As you were speaking about Ravana, I just felt, except for the part where you said he's looking very handsome, except for that part, everything else fits me. And what touched me was the way you were taking it along. You're your deep realization was very nice, Prabhu. In fact, one of the phrases that you said, it is not the object that matters, but the projection of the desire and service that makes the difference. A very, very profound statement. Thank you. You put it so succinctly, and that's what I think I have to be very alert to. And you brought it out again later towards the end that it is like Ravana adjusting his dress. It's all boiling down to how much where the heart is positioned, which is changed by Shastra and service to the Vaishnavas. Thank you for bringing it in. But it was just like my life being replayed. Thank you for speaking so nicely and helping.
That is your humility. I was talking about my life opening up, and the realization is Valmiki is writing. This is the Vedas. He's writing it in a way that, in one sense, it's applicable, and I might probably be a little audacious and say it's applicable to all of us because of the bodily conception. That's how the conditioned soul is. So, and I'm always conscious of time, and I don't want to make it too philosophical, so I skipped a bunch of things, but there's packed. Every little verse has description that is packed with stuff. That not that I'm aware of it, I'm not aware of it. Therefore, we miss out a whole. And because of me, all of you are missing out a whole. But whatever little is there, that is so much to appreciate. Veda Vedye Pare Pumse Jate Dasharathatmaje Vedah Prachetasad Asit Sakshat Ramayanatmanaha. That Veda Vedya, Supreme Lord, has descended as the son of Dasharatha. Jate Dasharathatmaje. But as soon as Lord Ramachandra descends, then the Vedas also take birth because they want to be with him and glorify him. So the Vedas appear through the mouth of Valmiki in the form of Ramayana. Vedah Prachetasad Asit Sakshat Ramayana Atmana. These are the Vedas, Vedic teaching. But given in poetry, given in all of this description to help us, because stories and the Lord's enacting of all of this is enacting our story. Thank you, Shamkun.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. This is Nritya Gauranga.
Yes.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. So thank you, Prabhu. It's just I wish this never ends. It keeps continuing. This yours is so attractive to hear, and yes, as you're saying, it is enacting each of our lives. It's bringing our own life in front, as if we are seeing our life in a mirror. So one question I had, like as you were mentioning, when the Ravana was approaching or coming to this Ashokavana, like when all the Vedic hymns are being recited, and you said that one of the queen was carrying a wine in the pot, walking beside Ravana. I'm unable to comprehend, because in today's life, when somebody is doing a puja or a ritual, at least they will have, even though they are addicted to alcohol, at least during the time they will keep the alcohol aside. But then I'm trying to understand, in those days where Ravana was
nowadays, even when puja happens, people have a different intoxication. In the middle of it, the intoxication is that look at that picture of Hanuman.
Hanuman, Jai.
The intoxication is such that, one is absorbed by, influenced by, or under the influence of that kind of intoxication. Maybe different.
Okay.
So in Ravana's case, she's carrying a pot of wine because he likes to enjoy. For the conditioned soul, or for the mind, or whoever, They're different intoxication. It doesn't always have to be in liquid form.
I see. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah.
And this is at Brahma Muhurta time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nothing surprising. What was valid then is valid today.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for clarifying. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing special, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance, Agashwapad. Just a small comment. I, um, uh, I was surprised that people who are doing such activities early in the morning in Brahma Muhurta are so beautiful and so handsome. Usually, this kind of people are, they lose the luster and they're not bright enough. But here to say that they're very bright and very beautiful.
Okay. I'm sorry. You were making a point, Paramakaruna. I didn't.
I think it's a point, but if you have an explanation for that, then I'm surprised that how can it's possible that people who are drinking and smoking and early in the Brahma Muhurta could be so bright and so beautiful as a heavenly angels.
Because they're enjoying with Ravana. And they all represent for a person along the mind the different senses and sense objects. So the mind is always enjoying. Now, in this, I didn't spend time on it, but previously, the wives who were following Ravana, the word used by Valmiki is Angana. He doesn't say Patni, he doesn't say Bharya, he doesn't say Vanita, he says Angana. Angana means those with very well-formed limbs. But philosophically, Angana means that which gives movement to limbs. So what gives movement to limbs? It's the mind or the desire in the mind. So if I want to grab this phone, I have to move my hand to grab it. But if I don't want it also, I have to move my hand to give it up. So both in pravriti and nivriti, there is movement. But for what is the movement is the important piece. So Angana means they all are moved by the mind. That's how it is. Every sense, limb, everything is moved by the mind. The only thing that doesn't affect is the soul. And isn't that there in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna gives a hierarchy. The sense objects, then is the senses, then is the mind, then is the intelligence, and buddhe paratastu saha. Beyond that is the soul. But this buddhi, although by nature is subtler and perhaps stronger than the mind, becomes subservient to the mind. And so Sita, who represents that pure soul, she's not affected. But everything in Lanka is affected by Ravana, the mind. And so these Angana, they are also following, they are the senses that move according to the desire of the mind. Every word Valmiki uses has gravity. Angana, he says. So it's not surprising. And when there is a sense of lust that one is pushed by, Arjuna asks, Atha kenapi prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. What is it? And he says, Balad eva niyojita. It feels like a force. I don't want to do it, but almost like I'm forced to doing something that I want to do. And for that, timing is never a concern. Whether it is Brahma Muhurta, afternoon, evening, what does it matter?
No, it makes sense.
People can do all sorts of things. People who party, they party till 6 o'clock in the morning. All through the
Yeah.
night. They're not thinking Brahma Muhurta, oh, such a sacred time.
Yes, Prabhu. Makes sense. In that sense, your analogy of giving the time when the forces come, you told that, okay, there should be some incubation period. There should be some time, not incubation, not a good word. Time relapse or time lapse should be there so that the forces will go away. But the forces are so strong in that even the time is not going to work. So what's
Yeah.
the question of giving the time?
Therefore, the idea Rupa Goswami gives us is Vishaheta Dhira, that in that time gap, that once Dhirat Ramayate iti Dhira, one who enjoys in one's intelligence or one who enjoys by his intelligence, that's consider, hey, where's life? What are the, those kinds of things. Without a tinge of sattva guna is impossible. Therefore, Hanuman is sitting there. It's that time, and his mood is very, very different from Ravana. So there's a contrast right there. So we'll end with this verse, which is the 25th verse of chapter 18. After what we have explained, Ravana adjusting his cloth, Valmiki tells us, Tam patra vitape linaha atra pushpa ghanavritah samipam iva samkrantam nidhyatumupchakrame. Tam, that is Hanuman, patra vitape linaha, he became camouflaged in the leaves that was on the Shimshupa tree. Atra pushpa ghanavritah. And that branch had thicket of leaves and flowers, and in that he became completely camouflaged so that Ravana cannot see. Samipam iva samkarantam. It felt as if Ravana was coming towards him. Nidhyatum upachakrame. Nidhyatum, to see. Hanuman started looking at Ravana more closely as he was coming closer to the Simshupa tree where Sita Devi was. Okay, let's end here. Thank you very much for. Oh, someone else wants to say something. Shamakun, your hand is up.
Yes, Prabhu, it's just if you may, to add upon what you were speaking to Paramakaruna Prabhu, about his Prabhu's question was, how come the ladies and others they were so effulgent even after being intoxicated, etc. And one thing that I was reading through recently was that Pururavas had a relationship with Urvashi. And in their lineage, all the rest of the great kings and etc. came about later as a progeny of Urvashi. And it is said that because Urvashi belonged to the heavenly realm, the progeny, they were very strong. The kings who came later, they were very strong. It is not of an earthly kind. People born on earth cannot be so strong. And likewise, the ladies with whom Ravana was living with, most of them he had abducted. They were not these ordinary ladies. They were the sons of almost like from the Devatas, the descendants of Brahma, Brahma's one son, its daughter, something like that. So we cannot apply the yardsticks of human beings that a little of intoxication means we lose our luster. They have these almost near heavenly bodies kind of a thing.
Oh, thank you. That's a good point. I didn't realize that was this question, but thank you for adding that. That's true. They are Gandharva Kanyas. Okay, I think I see one more hand up. Sarvabhauma Prabhu. Haribol, Sarvabhauma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear?
Oh, yes, yes.
So I was just trying to add one point, considering Hanumanji versus Ravana, that the verse of Bhagavad Gita 269, what is night for all beings, the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is the night for the introspective stage. So even the timings is the Brahma Muhurta, but from consciousness point of view, it's night for Ravana. So
Right.
I was contemplating on that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. We are followers, or we want to become followers of Hanumanji, not of Ravana. And may that Hanumanji bless us, glance at us, that even if we are sleepy, intoxicated, maddened, or wayward, that his loving glance acts like a solid bedrock, and the light that brings lost ships back to shore. May Sri Hanumanji, who's sitting on top of the Shimshupa tree and observing all of us, guide us, give us some strength to be situated at his lotus feet as a servant of the servant of Sri Sita Ramachandra and Lakshmana Deva. Thank you. Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanumanji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.